Token by Trin Wade.
I almost didn't mind being the only black girl in all of my classes in all of my 4 years spent at Dalton Preparatory Academy. Toni Morrison's Pecola Breedlove. Zora Neale Hurston's Janie Crawford. I almost didn't mind being told that I was pretty for a black girl. I almost didn't mind when my teachers called me Tamara, Tashina, Tatiana. Do you think all white people are racist? Becky. Will I be culturally appropriating if I wear box braids for my birthday next week? Mackenzie. But if I can't say it, why is it okay for all the rappers to do so? Amy. I can still remember that day. Thomas Jefferson. Yes, that was his real name. Walked into my homeroom with an unusually cool gait, as if he had no idea what it means to exist in a predominantly white world. I couldn't believe his gall when, right after the teacher introduced him to a sea of pale faces, he strode over to the back of the class and slid into his seat. I, who spent 12 years sitting in the front row so that my teachers would never assume that I was a slacker, almost let out an audible gasp at his bold act. Thomas, if you need any help locating your classes, I'm sure Tasha will be more than happy to assist you. Excuse me? Thomas lightly tapped my shoulder. Startled and slightly irritated, I turned to face him. What? My tone was harsh, but Thomas didn't seem to notice. Are you Tasha? I nodded, but failed to meet his gaze completely. Do you know where room A65 is? Once more, I almost gasped in disbelief. There was no way this kid had the same morning class as me. You're not in honors French, are you? Thomas nodded. I am, actually. It's right around this corner. You better hurry up, though. Madame Toussaint hates tardiness. Noted. Thomas slightly picked up his pace. Class, we have a new student joining us, Madame Toussaint announced. Thomas. I wonder where he's from, Amy whispered. Probably somewhere in the eastern part of the city. You know, Becky replied. I rolled my eyes, but bit my tongue. The tuition at Dalton Prep cost $26,000 each year, and they weren't known for being generous with their scholarships. I was lucky that both my parents were Dalton alumni, like many other students, which meant I saved half off the full price of tuition. Once Madame Toussaint finished scribbling the French idioms, she looked toward the class. Ollie Klugenheimer. Yes, Ollie, please share with us the English translations of these phrases, Madame Toussaint instructed. Ollie tried, but failed to properly translate each phrase. Rebecca Larson, failed. Rod Stewart, failed. I couldn't blame them. Madame Toussaint's idioms were always the worst part. 5 incorrect interpretations before she finally gave in and translated them herself. I waited patiently for Madame Toussaint to give away the translations. Thomas's hand shot up from the back of the class. Yes, Marcus? Madame Toussaint asked. It's Thomas, ma'am. Madame Toussaint blushed. Yes, my apologies. Do you need something? I would like to translate the phrases. Are you sure you're ready to do so? It's only your first day. I'm sure. Madame Toussaint nodded. Thomas,
Un danse de bas-fond, laisse tomber, il ne sait rien faire de ses 10 doigts. Celui-là, arrivé comme un cheveu sur la soupe, merge son grain de sel, va te faire foutre.
Wow, my emphasis started. That was impressive. I couldn't wait to get out of that classroom and never have to see him for the rest of the day. With Amy and Becky by my side, we walked together to AP English Literature, where I couldn't wait to discuss the assigned chapters of Candide. I totally forgot to read those, Amy exclaimed. It doesn't matter. Mr. Lau loves you, so he'll definitely let it slide, Becky reassured her. Yeah, I agreed. Even when you failed the book report last month, which was worth 3 grades, you still made the honor roll. Thomas, empty seat, back of the classroom. I wanted to scream. Look who's back, Amy noted. I wonder if he's as good at English as he is at French, Becky replied. There's no way he knew all those idioms so quickly. He must have had his phone sitting in his lap the entire time, Amy speculated. I nodded to myself. That made much more sense to me. Thomas had a harder time being called on during our class discussion of Candide. Not once did Mr. Lau call on him, not even when he had the only hand raised. I chastised myself for keeping up with this information, but I couldn't help but rejoice at no longer being the only black sheep of the school. I waited for Amy and Becky outside of the girls' bathroom. Thomas appeared at my side. This time, I let out a groan. Don't tell me you need me to direct you to the restrooms. Thomas only shook his head. Then what do you want? I want to ask you why you think we're the only 2 black people in this entire school. What? Surely other black kids have applied, right? Dalton is a pretty popular school. It's also pretty prestigious, which means that not everyone who applies is bound to get in. Still, Thomas began, I've been here long enough to notice that not everyone who goes here necessarily belongs here. You haven't even been here for a full day. I've been here long enough to recognize that the only other black people here, besides you and me, are the janitors and the lunch ladies. Who could I express these feelings to? Amy and Becky and Mackenzie would never understand my anger, deeming it either unnecessary or unimportant. Before I could respond, Thomas began walking down the hall. That same relaxed gait. Amy and Becky emerged from the bathrooms, both girls wearing faces of dazed youth. Can you still smell it on us? Amy asked me. She waved her arms around for me to smell. I shook my head. Amy wasted like half a bottle of lavender daydream body spray on us just to make sure Mr. Lindsay wouldn't spot it during calc, Becky admitted. He never does anyway. Upon arrival, I wasn't stunned. Thomas sat in the very last row. I slid into a seat 2 spaces away from him. He didn't even bother glancing in my direction. Neither did Amy or Becky or Mackenzie when they walked into class, bubblier than usual, and took up 3 seats in the front row of the classroom. Mr. Lindsay, our calculus teacher, assigned us a few problems to complete by the end of the period. As he walked through the desk, inspecting the work of each student, I noticed him closely observe Thomas. I figured he was accustomed to the looks by now. Remember, class, Mr. Lindsay warned. Absolutely no cheating is allowed. He looked directly at Thomas. I wanted to scream. Not once did Thomas glance up. At the start of lunch, I walked nervously into the cafeteria, as if it were the first day again, as if I were searching for a place to fit in. My usual table, Amy, Becky, Mackenzie. I almost thought about joining them, but something seemed off. They looked happier, engaged in a conversation that I would never understand. I'd never seen them so joyful. I spotted a nearly empty table near the window. Only one other person sat at it. I mentally prepared myself for what I should say to Thomas. Decided comfortable silence would benefit us both. He gave me a friendly nod as I slid into the seat. Across from me, Thomas munched absent-mindedly on a bag of chips. Can we start over? Thomas shrugged. Why? Did we get off on the wrong foot? The grin on his face, I knew he understood what I meant. I smiled back.